Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Matters of the Heart and Soul podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Janie Charlo, and we are talking today all about the freedom to live. And today I have a special guest, somebody that I go way back with, Dr. Carla Roque Allen. So welcome to the podcast, Carla.
I'm so glad to be here, Janie. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to be really diving into Carla's book, all right, Freedom to Live. And I'm going to let her introduce herself and talk a little bit about it. But I thought that this was such a good topic because a lot of us are in bondage and we don't even know we're in bondage. So the opposite of bondage is freedom. And it's not just, freedom of mind, but it's freedom of emotions, freedom of spirit, freedom of, how you could express yourself, freedom of having your voice. I mean, it's so many things that we don't realize that we're just in bondage of. So Carla's journey and her book was amazing. At the end, we're going to tell everybody how to get this book. But Carla, just go ahead, introduce who you are outside of an author.
Yes, absolutely. So I am affectionately Carla. That's what I like to be referred as. It took me a long time to even acknowledge and be okay with being termed a doctor, but that is a part of my story too. I am a pharmacist by profession, um, 20 years in, which I cannot believe it's been that long, since our days at ULM in Monroe, Louisiana.
Yep.
But nonetheless, I'm just a Southern girl from the great state of Louisiana, born and raised. Currently living in near Little Rock, Arkansas, married, two loving boys, wonderful husband, first lady. My husband's a pastor at our local church here. So work full time, momming full time, doing all of that, and it's a lot of work. But God is good, and I appreciate Him for blessing me thus far and for where I am right now. So it's just an honor to be here, Janie, and thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. And let's break it down. So, what inspired your book, Freedom to Live?
You know, if I could just best describe the inspiration behind the book, it was completely God inspired for me, Janie. And when I say that, I never really looked to write a book, okay? Probably never would have had He not, come hard on me. Carla, this is something that I need you to do. I need you to share your story, because this is not even just about you. It's about helping other people that may struggle with similar things that I write about in this book. And I need you to do this. And I need you to do it now. Don't procrastinate anymore, because it took a little time for me to take those first steps and all of that. But it's completely God inspired, and I completely had everybody else in mind that I would hope that would benefit from it. When I started going through the process, I said, oh my gosh, I'm sure there's a little girl growing up that may be able to benefit from this, or a young man, because it's not even just about women, about men as well. And so I had those people in mind, which also encouraged me to kind of continue that process.
Hmm. So, kind of like you said, like you had a loving husband, kids, great career. But you mentioned in the book that you lacked vitality from within. So, can you explain that?
Absolutely. So, when we live, Janie, we go in and out our day-to-day lives, and most of the time we're just barely making it. We got a full schedule. We may have went and had a higher secondary education. We've got these degrees, and everything just kind of looks good from the outside
Mhm.
looking in. It's a good painted picture. But at the end of the day, when you sit down and you just kind of evaluate and you think and you reflect, you're like, I'm just in the motions of doing, and being there for everybody and working and all of this, but where is the life? Where is that person that God made me to be? That purpose? Am I living? Am I truly living and thriving? Or am I just existing?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I mean about that vitality. Yeah, I'm doing all of these things, but at the end of the day, is it really what matters? And I know I'm a pharmacist and I love it. I love being a mom and I love being my husband and church and everything. But I had to think about Carla,
Yeah,
and where I was,
yeah,
and I think that's the focus there. You
yeah.
know,
So, which you would think, right? Or at least we've been taught that church is the purpose, right? Isn't your relationship with God the purpose?
it
Right. And
is.
here you were living that life, but still lacked something. Right.
Mhm.
So what happened at this point? Was there a breakdown? How did you get to freedom?
I when I sat down and I started looking back over my life, yes, I was going to church, but did I really have that relationship with God? Because you can talk about church all you want to. And I grew up Catholic, and we went to church. We were taught that that was what we should do. But what I learned as I grew older was that relationship and that with God is really where I lacked. And so I knew of him, but I didn't really know him.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I lacked a lot of things in a lot of other areas. Because for me, putting him first and committing to that relationship with him was something I did not have. And when I started to move in that area and grow in that area, then my eyes were open. Okay, Carla, you don't quite have it all together over here. You really naive about this and what you're struggling with over here. And so for me, that was eye opening. Yes, I've been doing this church thing since I was little, and then I transitioned with my husband when we got married. But do you really know me? Is what God was saying. Do you really know me, or do you know what somebody else told you about me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was the eye opening experience when I finally committed to that authentic relationship with Him.
Yeah. How would you describe authenticity or even an an authentic relationship with the divine? How do you describe that?
So for me, if I were to put a definition on authenticity, it would be, I mean, there's so many ways you could go, but really learning who you are, okay? All of you, okay?
Mhm.
All of you. And that's inclusive of everything. And being able to show up as that person,
Yeah.
okay? Not having this mask on of who people may want you to be or who you want them to think you are.
Mm-hmm.
um, Being genuine, um, being true to my values and my beliefs, and not being fake, because we can show fake all the time, Jamie.
Yeah.
Especially we as women. We can perfect that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So in your
So
book, you talked about overcoming the bondage from of being a perfectionist and perfectionism. And I really want to talk about that because I think that is something a lot of women deal with, whether it's taught to us by our own mothers, whether it's a childhood thing. I don't know. There's so many ways we could pull back that onion. But there was something I want to read from your book, okay? And I
mhm.
was like, wow, this was, I think that was probably an eye opener for you. And I was
Mhm.
like, because how do you respond to that? So I'm going to read real quick, okay?
Yes.
So, because I lacked inner peace, I could not exude it to others. If I were going to live in peace, it would require that I surrender my expectation of perfection for myself and others. In Proverbs 14:1, a wise woman builds her house, but a foolish one tears it down. I realized my expectation of perfection from my immediate family was damaging. I remember when my oldest son learned to dress himself and was still not quite doing it well. One morning before church, his shirt was not neatly tucked in and he appeared sloppy. I told him, boy, no woman wants a sloppy man. You'll never get a girlfriend dressing like that. Now, he was maybe 6 or 7 years old. Immediately, he started crying, and I could tell his feelings were hurt. But it did not click to me the extent of the words I expressed until my husband said, Carla, you can't say that. You're his mother, and for you to say that to him is hurtful. I felt awful and immediately apologized. My moment of expecting perfection from him is something as simple as his attire, and the words I spoke caused him to hurt and cry. That was a twofold learning experience for me. I could never make that mistake again, and as a parent, I realized I would not always make the right choices. When I
Yeah.
yeah, when I read that, I was like, you know, we'll have those moments as parents, as mothers, as whatever, that you're like, I got to get this together.
Yeah, perfectionism, if I'll just be honest with you, I thought that was a positive quality that I possessed for a long time. Because in my mind, you always want to put your best self forth. You don't want to have any flaws. You want to say the right words, you want to pronounce the right words, you want to have your hair looking fly and your fingernails painted, and just everything about you just looks perfect. And it's just really not realistic.
Mm.
And the thing about perfectionism is I was expecting myself to be perfect, and then I exuded that to other people. And so being so self-critical, and I believe that's a big part of it. We're very critical of ourselves, and how we look to others and how we sound to others and what we do. If it's not just the right thing, then I mean, for me, I would just get all sidetracked and get down, and I'm like, oh, I didn't do that right. What are they
Yeah.
going to think about me? So there's so much in there. And then expecting people who are human, just like me, in flesh, that they too have to be perfect, that there is no room for error, and that's just not realistic. That's not living, in this day and age. As long as we're living on earth, we're always going to have something that we don't do quite as well, something that we lack, that we're not good at. And it's okay. And I've learned to be okay with that. I am perfectly imperfect. And there's something that, as I was kind of writing that portion in the book, I was led in the Bible about kind of like a cracked pot. I'm a vessel being made by
Mhm.
God, and every day I'm learning and I'm growing, and those cracks in the pot are like my imperfections.
Mhm.
And the purpose for us living is for us to shine forth light for somebody else to be able to learn something or to grow themselves. And so without those cracks, Jamie, without those imperfections, that light wouldn't be able to shine forth, because people can relate to you when they realize, she's just a real girl.
Yeah. I
So,
agree. I agree.
yeah.
Where did the sense of having to be perfect or the belief, like you said, you always thought that was a good thing. Where do you feel for you personally it came from?
I don't know. I really think just growing up, um, people probably don't believe this, but I have not always had the most self confidence, um, and self worth about myself. And so, because you feel a certain way about yourself, it's like, okay, I need to present to the world the opposite of that.
Yeah, yeah, I
You
get that.
know, And so even though I'm really not that perfect, I want that portrayal to be out there
Yeah.
as if, to make me feel better. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I believe that that probably started when I was very, very young,
Mm,
probably before high school.
yeah.
And so, I mean, that's just in all honesty.
Yeah. And I think it's that balance because I do believe if there's qualities that we feel we lack, right? And we want to get better at it. I do believe we have to like start to exude the quality that we want.
Absolutely.
But I call it making sure we look at both the light and the shadow because if if we forget why we're doing it, then it's almost like you become an imposter. Like, okay, this is not
Yeah,
you, and you forgot about that shadow that you're really trying to transmute into light.
absolutely.
So, yeah. So, but I think I really want to touch on that, the perfectionism, because I think that's huge. I think that's a big thing. And a lot of women, not just women, men too, but being women, I know that is something that women try to do. And then I think until they break down, they have a real breakdown, then it's like everything comes tumbling down.
Yes.
And we don't
Yes.
want nobody to get to that point. You really don't want to get
Right.
to that point. You don't want to get
We
to
need to hit it right here so we don't get there.
that. Let's talk about the freedom of your voice. All right. And how I thought this was so amazing because I talk a lot about how mental, emotional, spiritual things will manifest physically. And a lot of times, physical issues have a stem in the mental, emotional. So in the book, Carla talked about developing some TMJ issues, right? Which is some jaw issues. Can you talk about that and how that was a process of becoming freedom from, finding your voice?
Absolutely. And so in my book, I talk about how going to the dentist for a regular cleaning, and I was found to have some cavities, and I needed to have those fixed. And so I went in to get that done. And after, the process, my mouth was hurting and it continued to hurt. And I could hardly open it weeks and weeks and weeks. And so I ended up having to go to a TMJ specialist. What's going on here? Nonetheless, I did not have TMJ. I was healed of it. But the whole point of that occurrence happening was God showing me, because during that time of me suffering, I wasn't able to open my mouth to barely talk. I wasn't able to hardly eat, to brush my teeth, to do the simple things that you just take for granted. And so God showed me, He said, I wanted you to have a visual of what you look like in
Mm,
the real world. He said, you have so much in you, Carla. You have a lot of experience. You have an opinion that matters. Your voice needs to be heard. There's a lot of young people out here that are waiting for someone like you to open your mouth and to share. And you have been so hesitant, second guessing yourself all the time, talking yourself out of every opportunity that I've put in front of you long before now. I've given you a lot of opportunities, but because you've been so fearful and you just sit back and you don't have a voice, you act like you can't say anything. He said, I needed you to see that. And the only way you can see that is me manifesting in that dental office and causing this to happen. And it was so eye opening for me, Janie, because I knew it was true.
mm,
Because I would sit in rooms and in spaces, committees, whatnot, and I would just sit there. And
mm,
when it would be impressed upon me to say something, I would just sit there,
mm.
you know? And so I had to grow to be more confident in the things that were already in me,
Yeah, yeah,
that needed to be shared.
yeah.
Testimonies. I talk about testimonies, and that's just sharing of the goodness of God. I've never really wanted to do that because I was fearful about people thinking, oh, she all that, she got a doctorate, she got all of this. But then I was like, well, God blessed me with that. And
Mhm.
I'm thankful. So I'm gonna talk about my testimony and maybe it'll encourage somebody else that wants to go on and do whatnot, you know. So anyway, that me finding that voice and being able to express it. I call it self-expression.
Yeah.
You know, your ideas, your opinions, they matter.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story to tell. And this book, that's a part of my journey, opening up as hard as it was, being vulnerable and telling that story.
Yeah.
So,
I thought that was really a, a 360. Like when you explained that, I was like, wow, I mean, that's really what it is. When you can't talk, you don't have a voice. So let me ask you this, Carla, when you're sitting in a room and there's something bubbling up inside of you to say and you don't, what is that? Where does that come from? Like, what is your internal voice saying at that? Is there something saying, don't say it, Carla, don't say it? And then something saying, you need to say it.
normally I can tell when it's something I need to say because I get an overwhelming feeling, just like I had a meeting right before them and there was a discussion and there was a bubbling up in me and I knew I had to voice what it was I needed to say. But what keeps us from saying or opening up or expressing, I think sometimes it's just our thoughts about ourselves and what they may think about what I say.
Mm-hmm.
There, you know, and I talk about this, you know, the opinions of others. That's huge. I mean, the approval of others. Is someone going to agree with what I say or are they going to disagree? Is there going to be a conflict or is everybody going to be okay? Yes, I agree with that. And so there's just a constant kind of little battle of maybe I'll be safe, but then is safe really good, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so, you know, but being able to kind of push through that, and even if you do say something and it's kind of off the wall, I mean, it's not the end of the world is not there, you know,
Yeah.
but you know, just that learning process and being able to kind of push through those moments is so important.
Yeah. You talked about over being free from fear, and that's huge. I think I think fear is everybody's journey because
Yes, yes.
I found just in my own journey that it's completely opposite of spirit. It's
Mhm.
completely opposite of spirit. When you're in fear, you're not in spirit. And it was eye-opening for me. So can you talk about your freedom from fear? And I know it's a every day. I know sometimes we're not always free. I think we're always on the journey of freedom, right?
Yes, Jackie, that is
Yeah.
big. And I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure and express that because I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm free, I'm good, I'm never, you know,
Until the
it's
next
always
challenge comes.
until the next time. Like, I'm like, I wrote about these chapters and I'm like, well, I still got these things over
Yeah,
here.
no, trust me, I get it. We're always on the journey, and I think we're always students. We're always learning. But I
Mhm,
think our testimony, like you said, it could shed light on people out there. There's so many people on different journeys.
mhm. And you know, fear, I always kind of looked at fear as a bad thing in a lot of ways, but it's a normal human emotion. You know, we think about the sympathetic system and when we're in danger and our heart beating fast, and you know, that's a normal thing. So, fear is a normal thing. And the point that I wanted to get across with dealing with fear is not so much that you don't want to ever experience the feeling, but what it did for me was it just engulfed me. It kept me from moving forth. It was like a block. You
Mm.
know, I am just scared of everything. I'm scared of the future. I'm fearful about what this person might say, or you know, I talk about being a pharmacist in my book, and part of that, and I think it was in the worry chapter, but there
Mm.
was some fear in that, with just fear of making errors and just fear, 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 fear. And it just, I mean, what I call it is just a spirit of fear where you just walking in fear. You can't do nothing. You don't want to say nothing. You don't want to step over here. You want to try anything new. And so for me, it was being able to feel the fear, but then being able to still push through it and not let it hinder me like it had been for so long. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I can't even begin to say how long I've dealt with fear on that level. Now I still fear, but just like before this podcast, I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
Carla, you know what? You can do this. This is something new for you. It's just a part of this process, just like anything else. Come
Yeah.
on, girl, you got it.
It's a little stretching and it stretches us, but it's good. I learned, Carla, in my journey that the entire external world is programmed in fear. So
Mhm.
until we develop that relationship, like you talked about, in love, it's going to be so easy to discern it. And it becomes easier. And I always ask myself, am I making this decision out of love or fear? And it
That's good.
has really helped me along the way. When opportunities come, okay, is this out of love or fear? What is this going to be? Is my intention out of love or fear as well? Because our intention, sometimes we do stuff out of fear that we really shouldn't even do. So it's so many levels to it. But when I
It is.
really started to like distinguish that in my mind, this is loving and this is fear. And then it went a step forward. Love is God, God is spirit, but fear is mostly my ego. It's
Mhm.
false. It's
Mhm.
false things appearing real. And I started
Yeah,
to just distinguish it, and it's helped me tremendously, tremendously.
that FEAR, false evidence appearing real. I will always remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was really helpful. You also talked about, I mean, it was every chapter was so good because it was so many things. And I think these are things people really, really deal with. You even talked about the freedom from clutter.
Woo! Girl, that was a tough chapter to put in there. I'm like, I'm gonna have to lay out all my
Can you
all of
talk
me.
about that? And does clutter, is there a deeper issue happening with us when we live in clutter?
Absolutely. Clutter, ooh, there is so much that I have learned and I am still learning. I have not completely overcome that. It's been a process, but when I think of clutter, it's just a kind of a disordered state. And oftentimes it manifests on the outside. So, like for me, I mean, like right now, I'm going through my closet to try to get rid of clothes and shoes because I just, I still like to shop a little bit. But
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, I don't need all of this stuff. So it manifests in the outside. But like you said, where does it stem from?
Mhm.
And so I believe wholeheartedly that it's because most, if not all, are trying to feel some type of void or something on the inside that is not complete. And you're trying to fill it with whether it's this, that, or the other, And then it also, when I started writing, I was like, oh my gosh, thank you, God. Because He said, our minds and our hearts are also cluttered, Carla. I mean, the thoughts that some of us think about ourselves, I mean, it's just a manifestation. And the main thing that you need to ask yourself, where is this stemming from?
Mhm.
And are you willing to go there?
Yeah.
Because it can bring out some things that you kind of wish wouldn't be, But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I had to get rid of some of these things. And that's where the freedom came. I'm the
Woo.
more I can get rid of,
Yeah, like
yeah, I
I gotta
remember
clean
somebody
up
hurting my feelings one
cabinets.
day.
Yeah, closets, cabinets. I'm that person. Like I don't like clutter because it weighs you down.
It does. it weighs you down. It keeps you stagnant. You can't move literally because of the weight,
Wow.
and so I mean, that whole clutter thing, that has been a journey, but it has been so worth it. And I know one person has helped is my mother
Good.
because
Good.
when she read that part, she's like, "Carla, were you talking about me?" I said, "No, Mom, I'm talking about myself."
So, have you gotten to the root cause of why you were holding on? Because you talked about holding on. Now, you've been a pharmacist for 20 years. You still had your college books and notes and stuff. So,
Yeah.
have you gotten to the root of why you held on to so much for so long?
I talk about it in the book about my dad. My dad passed away, what, 22, 23 years ago. I know that that was a big part. That left a big gap for me, in a lot of ways. Just, I mean, he was a figure in our family, not just for my immediate family, but um, just for my grandmother's children. The oldest son. So that it was just a big ordeal that I don't think I ever really dealt with, Jamie.
Hmm.
Um,
So,
so
how
that
old were you when your father passed?
I was 21 or 22, 22 maybe, or
Okay.
almost. So,
Okay.
kind of adulting, but still having so much to learn, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
Um, and so I think I filled a lot of emptiness with a lot of stuff. Um, and then just not feeling the best about myself, Janie, I believe is also a big part of that, because people looking on us and like, well, what do you shouldn't have no problem feeling, having good self-esteem and self-confidence, but I really struggled with that. And so I think getting stuff made me
Mhm,
feel better, you
mhm,
know
mhm.
and so that's been a huge part as well, just kind
Yeah.
of coming to grips with, you know you don't really need those shoes. Well, but I love shoes and I love
Mm.
how I look in them, and it makes me feel a certain way. It makes me present a certain way in public. And so
Yeah.
I've learned that, it's not about that materialistic stuff. It's about what's in your heart and dealing with what's real, and that's one thing my husband talks about at our church. He's like, we gotta deal with what's real. What
Mm,
is the source of what you're doing? Why?
mm,
Why are
mhm.
you doing this? And that,
Yeah.
so anyway, it's been a learning and a growth for sure. And I've still got a ways to go, but
Yeah.
I'm on my way.
So, when you buy things, the shoes, the clothes, the this, the that, um, were you still feeling empty inside?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm.
I mean, it would not, it's like almost pouring water in a cup that had a hole in the bottom.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Nothing
saying?
you
It's
do could stay. It just falls out.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
just it's like because I needed to go get another pair, or I
Yeah.
needed to, I didn't have that. I had a pair of black ones like this, but I need another pair that with this heel or whatever, and it's just more and more. It's just accumulation. And like you said, I used to walk in my closet. I'm like, I don't even know what I got in here.
Yeah.
I can't even find half the stuff that I
Wow.
need. Too
Yeah.
much, you
Yeah.
know.
That's huge. That's huge. So the freedom of being offended easily. Let's talk about
Mm,
that. When I read it, um, I felt there was some fragileness there,
mhm, mhm.
which I could
Yes.
see,
So
and I could also see, okay, that's how you just mute yourself as well. You don't say anything, you just mute.
So there's a lot of you could look at the offense and being offended a lot of ways. For me, I I tied it into emotions, okay? Because when we get offended by others, maybe what they say or how they look at you or what they don't say. So silence has offended me because
Mhm.
sometimes you want somebody to say something and they won't say it, and you like, but what what happened with me, because I've always been that girl, Janie, that will wear my feelings on my sleeve at the drop of a hat. I'm gonna start crying, you know, and I'm so glad I'm not to that degree anymore.
Yeah,
But I've always been that girl that just super sensitive.
yeah,
Um, and it's not really fair to the other person on the other end, because what I found is whatever you did or didn't do that in that moment made me feel like I felt, what state are you coming in? What has happened in your life, or what did you just deal with
yep,
that maybe I don't really know about? And so that's where that perfectionism comes in, where you don't expect anybody to ever make an error and do something, but we're all flesh, we're all human. And so I had to put my emotions in check, because just because I feel a thing, that doesn't necessarily make it accurate for that situation. That person may have not intended it like that. Now, maybe they did, and sometimes they do, but it's still on me in terms of how I deal with it.
yeah,
And so that's the growth that I've had, is that I'm no longer tied into feeling a certain way after someone does something or whatnot. I'm able to let it run off my shoulders a
mhm,
lot sooner and
yeah.
not sit there and sulk for 2 days or
And
three
not even
days.
having the whole perspective, like
Right.
being offended, not even like I feel offended. I haven't even said I'm offended, and I'm creating a story in my mind that's
Yeah.
going like it then went to the train and back, and it
Yeah.
could be totally not even the truth.
It may not be the truth, it feels like it's my truth at the time.
Yeah,
And that's why it's so important to get perspective on things, and
yeah,
and to change our perspective of how we view what happens to us and how
yeah,
we respond. Because I mean, there's been a time where I would just shut down and I am not talking to anybody. I'm not having a smile on my face. I'm upset or whatnot. And then
yeah,
I'm like, what does that do? It don't hurt nobody but me, because that person going on, they're doing whatever. And here I am still walking in this.
yeah.
So,
That's true. And I learned, like, at least for me, I learned that when people are easily offended, or at the point when I was somehow easily offended, is because I was personalizing it. And it ain't had nothing to do with me. It ain't got nothing to do with you. But I'm here
mhm.
personalizing it because I've learned just in psychology, that's how the mind works. We take in and we personalize it versus, like
Yes.
you said, giving it that world view, like, hey, this is probably this person's issue. They just had a bad moment, and now here they are saying this to me, and it has nothing to do with me. I think about when we go through the drive-through, right, at a fast food restaurant. You trying to get your fries, that person is nasty, all of that, and you're like, I'm just here for the fries, but it ain't
Right.
had nothing to do with you. 5 minutes before you drove up, they got into it with their manager. It was all kind of stuff at the fast food place. It ain't had nothing to do with you, but they took their anger out on you. So when I started to look at it from a bigger perspective, and that is not about you, Janie, do not personalize this, it helped me
Yes.
see things totally different. And give
Yes. You
people
hit the
grace,
nail
and
on
give
the
people
head.
grace, like we could give people grace. And
Yep.
I've learned, and it is about controlling your emotions and
Mhm.
reacting, because sometimes people do come at you sideways and you have every
Mhm.
right to be offended. But once we respond, then they now control us.
That's right. But and the other thing too is I'm not gonna be a doormat either though, Janie.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. And I
There's a
think
balance.
there's a balance. And I think because you talked about growing up in Louisiana, growing up in the South. I think Southern women, I think there is some type of rearing of women there, of being seen and not heard.
Mm, yes.
Women, you should be seen and not heard. And how far do we take that? Because then you become the doormat.
Yes. And that ties in with the whole voicing your story and your opinions. You have a voice, so it all ties in together.
It goes deep. It goes like just it goes deep. It goes deep into, like I said, the rearing of what we're told. It goes deep into what we do when we go to church, what
Mhm.
we're, how we're told we should be. It's so much, and I just call it programming because it is what we've been taught. Is not necessarily coming from within, is what everybody has told us that we have to be and do and look like.
Yes, yes, amen.
All right. So, Carla, let's talk about seeking approval. You talked about being free from
Mhm.
seeking approval.
Yes, that I mean every one of these chapters is a big chapter,
It
but
is.
the whole approval from other people, I mean that ties into a lot of what we've talked about, but what I like to say about that is needing to get a thumbs up, Janie, before I felt okay to do this or to make a move, always having to ask somebody what they think about it, not believing in what I have already inside me that, Carla, you can go on and do that. You don't need to ask two and three and four people before you make a move. Now, it's good to seek counsel because sometimes it's appropriate if somebody's done something that you're trying to do. Of course, you seek counsel, seek godly counsel, but also seek God. And that's the number one thing for me. If I'm going to seek anybody, I've learned I need to seek Him because He will lead me into where I need to be and what I need to be doing. But forever. My husband would get so frustrated. He's like, Carla, just what you think? Go
Just
on
do
and
it.
just do it. Like they say, Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it, and
Yeah.
and be okay with that. And
Yeah.
what the other part to that I've learned is if I did it, whatever that it is, and it ends up being not a good choice. It's
Mm.
not the end of the world.
Mm.
And so for me, that was the thing. Like, well, what if I do it and this happens and that happens? Then, you know. And so that was a big struggle of mine. But learning that whole making a mistake and being okay with that, and that actually grooming you and forcing you to learn even more. That's a part of it too. So go on and make that decision. You good? You can do it. You
Yeah.
can do it.
You either win or you learn. That's
That's
it.
it.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so you talked about even just the freedom of indecisiveness and constant reasoning.
Yes,
And I think that all kind of goes together
it
when you
goes
start
together. I probably could
doing
have put all that in a big old nice chapter, but
it.
it really it bleeds into everything else.
Yeah. So, how did you find freedom? Because you talked about finding freedom through love. So I really want to talk about that because I want to give people good, practical tools, how to work through these things because we are it. We have to save
Yeah.
ourselves. And that's what helped me in my journey. When I learned nobody was coming to save me, Janie, you got to save yourself, is you and the God within you. And
Yeah.
this is your journey. So nobody's coming to save you. So what we gonna do?
What we gonna do, Carla? And I hate to say this, you gotta put your big girl underwear on. Come on, we going.
You
You
have
know.
you have
Um,
to.
and I talk about love in my book, and love is just a. That probably could have been a whole book title because there's so much about love, and what it means, and it means different things to different people. But at the end of the day, I believe everybody wants love. Everybody wants to feel loved. It's not just about a feeling, but a feeling is a big part of it. I mean, it's just like with God, I wouldn't serve a God that I don't feel. And so with love, there's so much there. And for me, I talk about three different areas with love. Talk about God's love, I talk about self love, and then I talk about loving others, which is the culmination of it and the ultimate, you know, end result. But until I really understood love, I thought I knew what love was, Janie, for a long time. But I realized as I started writing this chapter and looking and studying and just masking in love that, Carla, you really don't know what true love is, because it's more than a feeling and that gushy gushy. You think about being married and just having that feeling all the time, and yeah, you would like that, but that's not reality, not all the time.
Mhm.
Love is giving, love is sacrifice, love is patient, love is kind. And so learning about God and that God is love, first of all, and then how he made me and created me and how he took his time and he formed me, every part of me from the top to the bottom, inside out. And he made each of us just like that, unique and different, and said that he was pleased with that. And that meant so much to me. God was pleased with what he made. And
Mhm.
so now my mind has to match up to how he feels about. Okay. So I need to start loving me the way that God loves me. Because
Mhm.
God doesn't give up on me. Carla, you can't give up on yourself.
Mhm.
Okay. And so I started mirroring how God felt about me. And that improved my overall self-love.
Yeah,
Because for me, I couldn't give love to others, Jamie, if I didn't have a reservoir of it
that's
on the inside.
that's
You cannot give something that you don't have. And that was a big eye opener. And so I'm like, my love walk was not on point. I mean, even the love with my family and my children. I mean, I'm like, I can do better here.
mhm.
And so that whole love walk there, that's a big deal. And what's important for me is to love out of a pure heart. I don't want to just say I love you, Janie. I
Yeah.
want to mean that, because
Oh,
we can say words all the time. And I'm
yeah.
like, that words are just fluff. But
Yeah.
do you really mean that?
Yeah.
And people can tell when you mean it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
So,
think that keeps us aligned
absolutely.
authentically. I think it keeps us aligned with who we are authentically. And I think, like you said, in order to free yourself from all these things, right? The need for approval, indecisiveness, perfectionism, you have to love yourself, the good and
Yes,
the bad, all of it. You got to love all of that.
all of it.
And then, but you can't love what you don't accept. So, like you said, there was all
Mm,
these things that you didn't want to look at because I just want you to see the perfect Carla. I just want you to see that part.
yeah,
So I'm gonna put that in the closet, all these things. But until you accept all these things about yourself, then you love all.
right.
And then, like you said, I agree. You can't, it's your capacity. You can't get from an empty cup.
That's it. That's it. All day long. All day long.
So, yeah. Carla, so how do you define, with all of this, having the freedom to live? How do you define that?
So there's so much I can say about
I know.
this. When God gave me that title for the book, I remember where I was and what I was doing. And I talk about it in the book, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but I didn't really realize what it meant at the time, because when he first gave me that title, there was a process, Janie, and he started me on this process. Okay. And then it became clearer and clearer. Not because that part of the process was good, because a lot of it was bad.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's where these chapters come for. But freedom to live, living itself in this earth realm, it's really more than just being alive and breathing and making it from day to day. I mean, a lot of us, you talk to anybody, oh, girl, I'm just making it. And I'm like,
I
I'm
know.
not tired of just making it.
I
I'm
know.
like,
I
you
know.
know what?
Yeah.
God made this earth and He wanted me to have a little bit of heaven on earth while I'm here living.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
you know, so what does that look like, Carla? Well, you know what it looks like? It looks like accepting the good things, which we are excited about that when we achieve and when we do wonderful things and when people say wonderful things about us. But then also accepting the bad things or the negative things or the bad health situations, my father dying of cancer, just the things that hit us like a load of bricks
Mm-hmm.
that in the past have just brought me down to the ground and had me
Yeah.
out. But a freedom to live is being able to navigate those good moments and those not so good moments and realize that it's working together for the good so that I'm not just alive and breathing, but I'm thriving.
Yeah.
I'm actually living. I'm making a difference. I'm showing up as my authentic me, the good and the bad and the ugly. And that's me. But guess what? I have God because He's the true source of freedom. And so for me, having that at the top, everything else is gonna align. And those bad days, they not gonna last forever, Carla. Get up, get yourself together. It'll be okay. It
Yeah.
seems bad, it feels bad right now, but that's not going to be your story, just sitting around moping and not trying new things and meeting new people and finding out you can do new things that you never did before. Like I talk about modeling in my book. That's something
Mhm.
I wanted to do for so long. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I hate I waited so long,
And
but
you
it
make
happened
such
at
a
the right
beautiful
time.
model. And you make such a beautiful model. Because when I first saw, I was like, look at Carla.
Look,
Beautiful.
I said the same thing, Janie. I said, is that me? Oh my
But you know what? There was this light that you saw in you,
God. Yes.
and there was this confidence, and there was this like there's this beauty. And
Yeah.
not that you didn't have any of that, it was like, whoa, wow, look at
And
Carla.
it's like I talked about that that cracked pot, that light is able to shine forth from the inside because Carla, you've accepted that this is who you are, the
Yeah.
good, the bad, the ugly. And it's just a different aura.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't explain it. So that's what freedom to live is.
No, and how free is that? I was talking to somebody and they're going through a medical situation and surgery was involved and then the surgery, caused, I think it was an issue. I don't want to say just something different, right? Looking different out in the public.
Mhm.
And I said, the public is going to accept you when you accept you.
Yes, that is huge, Janie. Oh my gosh. That's a hashtag.
When we our faults, who we are, because we think everybody knows and nobody know. Like, so
Mm-mm.
until you accept you, the world can't accept you. We have to accept ourselves first.
Yes.
Yeah. So Carla, a couple questions and then we're gonna wrap it up. Um, is there any book or books that you recommend that's helped you along the way? It could be about overcoming these bondages, anything. Is there anything that you could recommend to our listeners that helped you along the way?
Well, I mean, the main book for me, the most important book has been my Bible, Janie.
That's
I'm
fair.
just gonna, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
honest with you. And I purposely in the book put scriptures because anytime you have whatever your problem is, and I mean, there's a tons of problems, but it's in that Bible. And
Mm-hmm.
it's in there to tell you to meditate on, and to help you to be able to overcome whatever you might have that's
Mhm.
going on. So for me, I mean, that I can only tell you what has worked for me, and that to me is the most important book that anybody could ever pick up. And having a good Bible that, sometimes you can have a Bible that speaks a language and you like the guys and this and what does this
Yeah,
mean, but
yeah,
getting that version that like the Message Bible, the Amplified Bible, it puts it in layman terms of um what's really going on now. I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah,
I like the way it presents itself, and I'm able
yeah.
to understand and um to get more out of it.
Yeah.
So
A lot of people feel like the Bible has to be decoded, like on
mhm.
on your particular journey, right? And I believe that too, because I believe that during certain times in my life, there was certain verses that just jumped out at me. And it was
Mhm.
like it helped me to see a perspective different from what I was currently in. It helped me
Mhm.
just literally change my perspective. Do you feel like, because you did put a lot of verses in the book, was that a part of your journey? Like there was this decoding journey that helped you see a different perspective in the
Yes, I
Bible.
mean, that is exactly what happened, Janie, because I was kind of one of those people, I would go to church and I'd hear a message and they'd have a topic and put a scripture with it. But it sounded good, but then I'm like, well, what does that really mean? And I've always been that person that would have to kind of break things down. That's just how my mind works. And
Mhm.
so in this whole process, in my journey with God and my relationship with Him, He has showed me during my time in devotion with Him. I mean, sometimes I'll just be at work during my lunch break, and it may just be a little clip from a message that will just be like an onion and just open up so much.
Yeah,
And I just run with that,
yeah.
and so it makes it more doable, because you have a thick Bible and you're like, this is, I don't want to have nothing. It's overwhelming.
Overwhelming. Yeah, overwhelming. Overwhelming.
But I just take it bits and pieces and how it's applicable to where I'm at right now, and then He'll show me a little bit more later, and I take it one day at a time.
And I
Yeah.
think that's helpful for our listeners coming from you, Carla, who your husband is a pastor, right?
Hmm.
That seems like a lot. It just listening to it, right? But I think it helps people to realize like this is my everyday life. This is
Yeah,
how I do it. This is how I decode it. This is how it's helped me, and I do think that makes you more relatable to everybody.
absolutely. I mean, like I said, I mean, yeah, my husband's a pastor, but guess what? I mean, I'm still Carla. And
I love it. 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 And you know what, Carla? When you have that taste of freedom, you work so hard for it, you can't go back to not
girl, tell me
having
about it.
that.
I
Yeah.
refuse to go back. I,
Yeah.
I can only move forward. And
Yeah.
when I find myself, and the good thing about it, I got excited, is when I do find myself drifting, because you're going to drift a little bit back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I recognize it so fast now, Jamie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm able to put in motion, and
Yeah.
I'm like, we're not going there today. Not
No,
today.
I get it. All right. And at the time of the recording of this podcast, what would you say is the greatest matter of your heart? Deep down and
Um, the greatest matter of my heart, I would say self discovery. Janie is a big one in a lot of ways. Just discovering the real me, all of me, discovering hidden things within that have probably been there for a long time and just
Yeah.
been buried. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just discovering a newness, stepping out into something new. I mean, this doing this podcast is a new thing for me. And I was a little leery. I was a little scared. I was a little fearful, but self discovery, I believe it would be the term that I would put
That's
um,
good.
for
That's
me,
good.
so.
That's good. And I like that you know that that's where you are.
Mhm.
And you could let people know, hey, I'm in self-discovery. You might get this Carla today and you might get the next Carla tomorrow. So bear with me. And I think we have to go through that phase. Self-discovery. I like it. It's a fun phase.
Yes,
It's
yes,
a fun phase.
absolutely.
Yeah. So Carla, how can everybody reach you? How can our listeners reach you? And how can everybody get your book?
All right, so you can reach me through my website, which is www.carlarockeallen.com. My book is on there. You can purchase it through my site, especially if you want a signed copy and you want me to write you a little message in it, that would be the way to go. It's also available on Amazon. So you can go there just as you would for anything else and order it, and it'll be shipped directly to you. I ship when you do it through my website. And then here locally, for those that may be near the Arkansas area or traveling to Arkansas, I do have it in a bookstore here, Pyramid Books and Framing, here in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's on their shelves as well. So those are the three currently as far as how you can get it.
Yeah, it's an amazing read. It's a good read. It's an easy read. It wasn't difficult to read or anything like that. I just definitely get it if you are in that area of your life where you're trying to figure out who you are and you're in some type of bondage and you're trying to seek some practical ways, because Carla gave a lot of practical ways in her book on how to get through this journey, because it's a journey. It's a journey. And I think when we have tools in our toolbox, it's not so hard. And sometimes we think we're the only person in the world going through stuff, and we're not. And that's what this podcast is about, is being a light, is allowing people to come here to get fed when they need it. And hey, go back out and live your life. But it's people, having people on here to share their story, share their testimony, give some nuggets along the way, and people can come here and get fed when they need it. So
Yes.
I appreciate you, Carla, so much. Is there any last remarks or anything you want to share?
I think it's just, if you are in bondage, if you feel stagnant, if you feel restricted, if you feel stuck, if you feel like there's no way out, if you feel boxed in, you know, first and foremost, seek a relationship with God, because He's the ultimate guider through His Word. But understand what it is that you're going through, and fess up to that, and own up to that, and know that there is nothing too hard for God. And all of us have some type of struggle, whether we want to admit it or not. And we're all working through something. This is a growth process. This is all a journey. I don't know that we ever truly arrive at a state of freedom all the time, but you can certainly move a lot closer to where you're living and enjoying this abundant life that Jesus Christ offered us while we're here on this earth. And it's not just for you. And I tell that to everybody. It's not even just for you. This journey is not just for you. Janie, the journey you're on is not just for you, because there are people that need you. There's people that are out there hungry to hear your story, your journey, and we've got to be in position. We've got to be ready to be a help to other people because the days are getting short. The world that we're living in, you know.
Just this
So
month was chaos in the world.
yes,
So
chaotic,
have a
completely.
refuge from the external world. And I think that's
Mhm.
what it's about, like going within and finding that refuge that's within you. And it's amazing how powerful going within really is. Because
Yes,
that's
because
where
it's true to you. You know, it's you. It's almost like I can't tell anybody something, Janie, and it really mean much if I've never really experienced it. You know, I can talk about it, but
yeah,
it's not gonna hold much substance. But
exactly.
when you live a thing
Yeah.
and you know a thing,
Yeah.
then you got something.
Yeah, it's real. It becomes real.
So
So, Carla, thank you so much for writing your book. I think freedom to live. it- I think people don't realize that it's our birthright.
yes.
So get free on all the levels, all the things. Just get free because it is your birthright to be free. So, that
Amen.
note, guys, we're gonna end this podcast. Reach out to Carla if you want to. Definitely grab her book. And as always, we'll catch you guys at the next episode. Until then, take care.